Hello people of the internet, welcome back to my channel. You're watching the highlight reel. So in today's video, I'm going to be doing kind of a different story time. People normally do story times about their first fights or about breakups and best friends breaking up and things like that. And I do have those stories. So if you want me to tell more of a juicy type of story, definitely comment down below and let me know. But in this story, I'm going to be talking about all of my many jobs. So I am 23, I just turned 23, and I've had quite a few jobs. A few of them have lasted over a year, but for the most part I've had probably 8 or 9 jobs since I turned 18, give or take. And some of them lasted a day, 3 days, you know what I mean? So if y'all want to keep listening to the story, then just keep watching. I worked at a department store when I turned 18, and I worked in kind of like the fashion jewelry and the handbag department. So I was the person who unlocked the bags, let you see the bag, ooh, realize that it's $300-$400 and you ain't trying to buy that, and then I put the bag back in the case and lock it back up. And then I also sold like fashion jewelry, so like statement necklaces, like kind of costume rings, things like that. So I remember when I got that job, I was so excited because it was finally a job that I pursued, that I really got a chance to get, and they really liked me there, and I got to be stylish and kind of show my sense of style and stuff like that, and I just was really excited about it. And I was hoping to work with like some younger people because it was in a mall, like this department store was in a mall, so it was like, bet I'm gonna be able to work with like some young people and like be around other people in my age group, I guess. So I worked there for almost a year. It's also the only job that I've ever been fired from because I was late too many times. I'm just gonna be honest, I was just late. I just have no real excuse. I was just late. And then one of the interesting parts about me working there was, of course, if you work in a mall, you get like food discounts and you get to like hang out with some of the other people who work in other stores. And I just, you know, I'm just gonna say I was not that great of an employee because high key, I would leave my place of work, like my building or my store, and I would go hang out with the people at like Kids Foot Locker. I would go talk to people at other stores. I would be like all out in like the hallways. I would use the bathroom at like other stores down the way, and all while I was high-key clocked in. Like I was really the worst employee when it came to like responsibility in some areas. Like I sold pretty well, I was good with people, and I had good customer service skills, stuff like that. But I was still a immature young kid who just had no responsibility about themselves. Now ironically, before I got that job, I'd gotten into some trouble, and so I had to pay some things. I had to do community service for some things. If you want a story time about that, that's extremely full disclosure about a part of my life that I don't even really talk about, but I would be kind of happy to talk about it with you guys if it was helpful or anything like that. So I got into some trouble before I got that first job, so I had to pay for a lot of stuff, and I did have responsibilities, but like I said, I was just immature and I just was not that great of an employee at that point. So the next job that I got was at kind of like this music hall and bar, I guess. Basically the way that the venue was set up was the downstairs portion was our music hall where we held live shows, open mic nights, songwriting kind of like events, things like that. And then on the inside part, so separate from the music hall, was like a small restaurant. So we had a few tables in there, we had some booths along the wall, and then we had a bar. And then once you left the inside of the building and went upstairs, we had a rooftop where it was another bar, a lot of seating, and then we would have people perform and sing at the rooftop. So overall, just a really musical place and a very hipstery kind of vibe. A lot of the music that came through was like country, indie, folk kind of sounds, singer-songwriters, people who did poetry, people who did spoken word, stuff like that. So I was really excited. but the only catch was that it was downtown. So I lived a little bit outside of downtown, and I'd have to travel kind of into downtown just to go to work, and that was kind of a drag. Then I was surrounded by a lot of people who drank all the time. At this particular point, I was 19 and 20 while I worked there. So I was never someone who drank underage. So I didn't kind of understand why people act the way they do, or why they would get so drunk on like a Monday and a Tuesday, and it was just so kind of taboo to me because I just wasn't around that ever, and I wasn't really interested in it in a way. So I was always kind of frustrated with how drunk and disorderly a lot of people were. So while I was working there, I got to do their signs for up and coming shows. I got to be creative there. I was a host, so that was kind of my breakout in food service. I was hosting, seating people, and I was also working our box office. And one particular night we had a hip hop show, and I think like Lil Flip or Chamillionaire or somebody that nobody was really high-key checking for was there, and it was a lot of black people, and that was kind of unusual because it was always a lot of white people there because of the country kind of crowd. So I was really excited because it was like, bet, you know, we're gonna have hip hop, we're gonna have black people, we're gonna have like my kind of culture of people there, and that's just gonna be really exciting. And one particular night I was the bouncer, or like the door person, I guess, because seeing as I was hosting, I was the person who would see people come in and out of the bar, and you can't take alcohol outside of our building, you can't have it outside of a certain radius, so I have to always usher people back into the restaurant, otherwise I'd be in trouble and we'd have an issue. So this particular night there was a black guy who, I remember him coming in because his outfit was like really dope. It was like brown and like green tones, and he had this like little fedora, and I was like, okay, look, I see you with the outfit, I see you. So he kind of stuck out in my mind. So imagine my surprise when the night's kind of coming to a close, and girl, he gets kicked out of our bar because he's like too drunk and like falling all over the place and like laying down, girl, all over. So of course, like, we had to kick him out. You can't stand there and disrupt our guests, and you're a liability to us at this point because you're kind of like becoming dangerous to yourself and our venue. So he ends up coming outside of the restaurant or bar, and they sit him on like this little ledge that we have right outside of our building, and they call him a taxi. At that point, I see the taxi roll up, and this guy is so drunk that he won't even get in the car. Like, he won't even get in the car. So while I'm outside manning the rest of the crowd, the cab driver pulls me aside and he's like, okay, I can't drive this guy. He won't tell me where we're going. He won't pay me up front. And he's not being very responsive, so he has to get out of my cab because now I'm not making any money, like he's holding me back kind of thing. So like I said, my boss does not care that this guy's out here stuck in this cab because it's not his problem, and I'm frustrated. So I go out to the cab driver and I say, is it alright if I just get him out of your cab and sit him on the curb, and that way you can at least drive off? Because I don't know what else to do. So the cab driver, of course, is like, yeah, I bet, like, just get him out my cab. So I go over to the door and I knock on the window, and he's like barely looking at me. I'm like, okay, come on, like, will you at least get out the car? So I open the door, I get him out the car, I carry him, not carry him, but I like prop him up on my shoulder, and I like drag him basically to the grass and the curb on the other side of the street and just sit him in the grass. So his phone falls out of his pocket, and I'm like, can you call your friend, a sister, a brother, a cousin, a play cousin, play auntie, somebody, and have them come get you, because the cab driver is at this point not going to drive you anymore. And he's like barely talking, he's super coherent, he's kind of defiant, which is like not ideal because I'm trying to help him. And then literally just when I least expect it, some guys across the way at our building are like, what the heck, is that you? Like, we've been looking for you, what you been doing? Like, they literally are like, that's our friend, you know, like picking him out in a crowd and coming up to me and telling me that's their friend and they'll take care of him, they got him from here. And that was the end of the story. Oh my gosh, it was literally so crazy. I loved working there at that job, but I ended up not working there anymore because the conditions were just not fair. Like, I'd have to host in the dead of the Texas heat, and I'd have to host in like the winter, like the literal 30-degree winters that we would have, the dry cold in Texas. Like it would suck so bad. So although I really loved working there, I stopped working there because the conditions were just not fair. I'd have to host in like 100-degree weather, and I'd have to host in 30-degree weather, and it was just not working for me anymore. And anytime I would ask them to kind of accommodate me or the other host during the weather conditions, they kind of just put it off or would joke about it, and I was just kind of over it at that point. I made it there like over a year, and the guy who was my GM when I started no longer was my GM, so that was kind of like an L in my opinion too, so I moved on. So the next few jobs are kind of short jobs. I didn't work there maybe more than 6 months max. They were kind of just me passing through, and I just didn't last there for a long time. So the first place was a pizza place. I was a host. I quickly realized that I didn't want to host anymore, and I was doing the best I could to get out of that position because I just frankly didn't care where you want to sit. That's all. The next place I worked was a restaurant that I've been wanting to work at since I was like 15, and I finally got the opportunity to work there. At this restaurant, I worked on the line, so cooking, preparing foods, your plates, your dishes, etc. And I also was an expediter, so I was also making sure that every plate before it went out to you in your table was like pristine, like everything looked right, it was plated on the right plates, right side dishes, etc. So I really grew to like that job because it was my first taste in a restaurant atmosphere and not just working front of house and seating people. So the reason why I didn't work there anymore is because we were just understaffed, poorly managed. I was working a lot. I was running around a lot doing like a bunch of different jobs and services. Like literally, this is me. Harmonica in my mouth, playing the drum with my foot, playing the guitar with my hands, like playing the xylophone with my elbow. Like y'all, I was literally doing so many job descriptions and still getting paid for just the one. So I just felt like I was kind of getting shorted, and I didn't like that. But I did gain the experience in expediting, which kind of led me to the job I'm at now, so no harm, no foul, but it was kind of tough. So the next job that I worked at was a cupcake shop. If you go back in some of my throwback vlogs, you'll probably be able to see me working there, some kind of like day in the life stuff. And I probably also have on my work shirt. If you just want to see exactly where I worked, that's fine. I mean, I shared it then. So at this job, I really found this flow of working with food like hands-on. So like I said before, the previous job I was making entrees, I was making like sandwiches, salads, pasta, stuff like that, but it was kind of an add-on to my expediting job. Whereas this job, I was hired to do front of house, but I ended up doing like strictly decorating, custom cake orders, daily fulfillment, and making like our frostings and things like that, which I really enjoyed. At this particular job, there wasn't much of a downside apart from working every single weekend. I met one of my closest friends there, and we would always complain about that because we'd want to go out or we'd want to do like Sunday fun day stuff, but we would be at work every Saturday and Sunday. And I'm not talking like the morning shift or the night shift, I'm talking like 2 to 10. Like, where are they doing that at? I worked 2 to 10 for like a year. Like, no lie, like 2 to 10 or like 1 to 9 or something like that. And I was there all day. I cannot tell you how tiring and frankly like frustrating it was to devote every single weekend to one place. And the entire year that I worked there, I probably requested off a full weekend maybe twice. And then maybe 2 times, like one Saturday or one Sunday, and I worked the opposite day. But yeah, that's like the downside to working food service. You just need it all the time because people are eating all the time and you need to be available. Yeah, so I worked there for about a year, and then I moved on to another job. I tried to do the whole 2 jobs thing, and look, I don't know if it was the combination of the 2 jobs that I chose, but it wasn't for me. The first day that I had to work both positions, so like 12 to 8 at the cupcake shop and then like 8:30 to 11 at this other place, I had an abscessed tooth. Like, Google abscessed tooth, because it was literally absolutely ridiculous. My face was swollen, like I could hold it, okay? And I was in the worst pain. I was like taking Advil like on the hour, every hour. And it was Valentine's Day, and I had to leave my cupcake shop job and go on to like another food service job. And it just was not working for me. Like, something about that day just put such a bad taste in my mouth about working those kinds of jobs in conjunction with each other that I just did not like. Yeah, so I worked at that place for like 3 days and I realized I didn't like it. I didn't even get a check there because I worked there for such a short amount of time. Thank you, thank you. Moving on to the next job. So this particular job was supposed to be my dream job. It was supposed to be like this job that was getting me out of food service and giving me the opportunity to live the whole downtown lifestyle, super stylish, big bag, stop and get a coffee before work. It was like this super cool aesthetic lifestyle of a job that I was really hoping to love. But unfortunately, the arena that I was working in was like sales, and most importantly furniture sales, and I'm just not good at selling products, especially big ticket products. I feel like my daily life, I try to live with the smallest amount of products I can stand. So for me to sell things to people is just really difficult for me because I don't see the necessity in having a lot of things in my personal life. It might have been aesthetic and trendy, stylish, cute, whatever, but it was so boring. Like, I don't know why I felt like that, but it was just literally the most boring job I've ever had, probably to date. I worked there for a few months. I ended up working at another retail kind of style job until I realized that food service is just what I'm best at if we're talking about working for someone else, and I'm the most versed in it. I am working towards a career in being a private chef or a personal chef, so I just kind of have to go through the trenches in a way within food service, which is how I ended up where I work now. I now expedite and do hot prep, do some type of cooking in the kitchen, and kind of dual between those two things. And it can be really difficult some days. Most days I just kind of settle into the fact that I know what I'm doing, and that kind of propels me to want to come back. But yeah, that's all the jobs that I've had in my life. I know it's quite a bit, but I hope you guys could stand it and held on for the entire video. If you had any odd jobs, or if you've had a lot of jobs, I'd definitely be interested to hear where you guys have worked, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye! I know you're sad to see another video come to an end, but it's okay. If you want to watch my most recent video, make sure to click the rewind button. And if you want to binge on any other videos on my channel, make sure to click the TV icon. Oh, and subscribe if you're into that kind of thing. Bye, for real this time.